Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday stream. I didn't plan on making this a tradition, at least as far as subject matter is concerned, but as I am wont to do on a Sunday, I looked around and see if there was anything new from our friends at HIVE Diversity, and there isn't, at least as far as press is concerned, but there are some articles and some connections from those articles that caught my attention. And so, as per usual, I thought I would share what little I have come up with. Just as a forewarning, I have read parts of the pieces I'll be looking at today, but not the whole things. So some of it will still be a surprise. But yeah, so who is joining me on this wonderful Sunday morning? That'd be Becca Fairley, hello, Ex-Bubba Hotep, hello, and Lucatorix, hello. Yes, it is early. It's a bit odd, a bit spontaneous, but I felt in a mood, so here we go. So what is the latest and greatest that I've discovered, such as it is with HIVE Diversity? Well, I was curious about the various corporate partners that HIVE Diversity lists on its webpage, and if they put out any press regarding their association with the app. And if those press releases had anything interesting to say. As of this recording, at least, or broadcast, I haven't found anything that wasn't basically already boilerplate repetition from previous articles I'd read. So there were a couple of things I found press release-wise, but nothing that interesting. But then I came across the Retail Industry Leaders Association. And if you'll recall from the past broadcasts, one of the sales points, I guess I should say, of the initial HIVE Diversity offering is that they're operating first and foremost through college students and primarily with retail clients to find retail level jobs, entry-level jobs for college students for companies seeking more diverse workforces. Not all of the companies are effectively retail entities, but a lot of them are. One of those that is not specifically a retail company will become obvious in its connection here momentarily, if the thumbnail itself didn't give it away. Yeah, so with all that as preamble. St. Michael, hello. The Original Shroom, hello. Mike R, hello. Blake Hanley, hello. J2021, hello. Megan Ring, hello. The gayest person on YouTube, hello. All right, so let's get into this. And I chose this article specifically because very early on, there's an interesting contradiction in philosophy, but we'll get there momentarily. Workforce diversity will forever evolve. How tech empowers next-gen talent to do the same. From December 7th, 2020. This is a guest blog from Retail Innovation Center Startup Network member HIVE Diversity. So technically, this blog is written by representatives of HIVE Diversity, even if it's appearing on the Retail Industry Leaders Association site. So that's the first connection. And the first sentence is very interesting to me. Diversity is not a quota system. I'm just going to highlight that for, I don't know, sentimentality's sake. Diversity is not a quota system. At least not to college seniors like Maya Brown, an active student leader and D&I campus advocate. Brown believes the problem with today's diversity and inclusion initiatives is the very definition of diversity. Okay, now that obviously piqued my interest because in nearly all of these conversations, one of my first and foremost questions is, how do you define diversity? Because it is a very nebulous term depending on who's saying it and how they're saying it, organization to organization. Because if you can't define diversity, then it's very difficult to define when you've achieved success in achieving diversity in whatever, format we're talking about. So definitions are important. They are exceedingly important for HIVE Diversity, because that is the outcome that they are offering to their clients, that their app will help them achieve diversity in their workforces. But if you don't define diversity, how do you know when you've gotten there? Okay. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. Good morning. All right. To the international business major, it's not checking off people from different ethnicities, backgrounds, or religions. Quote, diversity is the thought of ideas, it's the thought of experiences, it's bringing people together who believe in different things, unquote, said Brown. Okay, so Maya Brown is defining diversity as diversity of thought. That is what diversity means in this instance. Okay, so let's remember, diversity is not a quota system, and diversity is the diversity of thoughts, experiences, and beliefs, we'll say. Okay. Now, thank you, Okie Native. Hello, this is Kyle. Hello, Okie Native. Wait, what? Okay, that's interesting. Have conversations with yourselves through super chats. Oh, well, wonders never cease. A student at Northwestern University, the senior is also an entrepreneur. Her fashion line, Jet Noir, launched earlier this year with the aim to empower women to express themselves authentically through what they wear. Brown is just one of many ambitious and academically outstanding students on HIVE Diversity's platform. Remember, this is written by HIVE Diversity. Okay, we're not talking about an objective viewpoint. But remember, diversity is not a quota system. A mobile optimized recruiting tool that democratizes both the job hunt and early career pathways for students and companies, HIVE connects students with diverse backgrounds to jobs and internships at its partner companies. Saks Fifth Avenue, Chobani, Capri Holdings Limited, Versace, Michael Kors, Jimmy Choo, and Atlantic Records are some of the high-profile brands making up its roster. Accenture tops off the list of Fortune 500 companies as another one of HIVE's notable partners, uniting with the D&I business on its deeper mission to make hiring processes more fair and equitable. Quote, we are collaborating with HIVE Diversity because they complement our purpose of combining human ingenuity with technology to serve a greater good, said Joseph Tayano, the retail managing director of marketing and communications. Thank you, ex-Bubba Hotep. Hello, Okie Native, and this is Kyle. Yes, hello, everyone, and hello, ex-Bubba Hotep. Now, again, for those of you veteran to my channel, you may have heard me mention Accenture several times in the past. A representative from Accenture was one of my earlier diversity videos in which that executive was the most blunt in his descriptions of what diversity meant to Accenture and their goals and methods for getting to them. I will attempt to link that video to the end of this after the broadcast is over. But I believe the title of the video, if you're going to look for it on my channel, is something to the effect of Unfiltered Diversity. I know the word unfiltered is in there somewhere, so if you search unfiltered on my channel, you'll probably find it. Let's see. He says, what HIVE offers is an innovative service. Yeah, I'm dying to know exactly how it's innovative. How does it achieve its claimed goal? By catching a student early enough, the platform facilitates career points of entry to major companies like Accenture, effectively impacting diversity on their bottom line. How? How does it do this? How is this? I've said this, I can't count how many times now doing these streams. How does this app achieve diversity for its clients? What is the mechanism? What separates it from any other job app? Tayano has the right idea. Quote, companies dedicated to fostering an inclusive culture, ones led by executives who make inclusive culture an organizational priority as well as a personal goal, grow more than twice as fast as their peers. Okay. The numbers speak for themselves. Okay, now, before I continue, the numbers speak for themselves. Diversity is not a quota system. Okay. Thank you, this is Kyle. People said hi back to me. I don't know what to do now. Help me, I'm scared. And thank you, Okie Native. Hello, ex-Bubba Hotep. I feel like I'm watching a game of tennis. Very polite tennis. All right. The numbers speak for themselves. According to Accenture's Getting to Equal 2020 report, we'll be getting to that shortly, businesses with gender diverse executive teams report their sales are 2.2 times higher, while profits are 3.2 times higher than their non-diverse counterparts. Diversity is not a quota system. Diversity is the thoughts of ideas, experiences, and beliefs in different things. The numbers speak for themselves. Gender diverse executive teams, non-diverse counterparts. You see the contradiction in theory here as we go very briefly from one part to another. And for every 1% increase in a company's diversity, there's a tangible increase in revenue. Okay, so there's a profit motive here. All right, got to sell you on the idea there's a profit motive to be had. Such a definitive business case for a more diverse workforce comes at a time where people everywhere are seeking to better understand the disparities in every sector. Over the past year, leading corporations across retail have acknowledged they each have a role to play in combating systemic inequity. CEOs of conglomerates like Amazon and Target have added their influence to the conversation, making recent public commitments to increase diverse representation in their companies. They joined Fortune 500 retail organizations receiving attention for championing D&I initiatives in the workforce, including H&M, Starbucks, and Costco. It's a list that keeps on growing as inclusivity has become critically important to retail brands and the purchasing behaviors of their consumers. It's also something that should be prioritized given the staggering inequities in today's workforce. The staggering inequities. So are we talking about inequities of thought, experience, and belief? How do you measure those? Unless those aren't actually the inequities you're talking about. Only 4 Black CEOs are on this year's Fortune 500 list. Only 4 Black CEOs are on this year's Fortune 500 list. Diversity is not a quota system. Reinforcing how Black executives are severely underrepresented in C-suite roles. Black women are even more disproportionately marginalized, making up only 1.6% of vice presidents and 1.4% of C-suite leaders, but 7.4% of the national population. Remember, there needs to be a one-to-one comparison in every sector of the world to the demographics of the nation in which these things take place, I guess. The pressure to the pressure to increase minority representation across all levels of a company now falls on the shoulders of those in positions of leadership as systems perform the way they are structured to. Increase minority representation. Diversity is not a quota system. Research by Harvard Business Review shows this isn't an issue that can be fixed by simply implementing quarterly training to reduce implicit bias on the job. Using standalone solutions as bandages to systemic problems translates to failure in the long run. Okay. Thank you again, X-Bubba Hotep. How do you know a diverse workforce without being a mind reader? Didn't they start this with diversity doesn't involve skin color or something? Well, I guess the only dodge rhetorically they have here is that they were giving the opinion of that one person at the beginning, except that this is their article, and they used her as an example to define diversity in their sort of thesis paragraph. So, right. That's one of the questions I've also always sort of asked abstractly. If the true definition of diversity, as I've heard many, many times said, is diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and so on, sure, you can, in an interview process, try to figure out where someone's mind is at, right? The interview process is you set up a scenario, or you put, like, I know several times I've sat in on interviews for developers in like web companies and things like that. And they'll put actual, like, here's a problem code-wise on the whiteboard or something, and they'll have the person sort of like demonstrate how they get around it or what they do about it, that kind of thing. A very sort of hands-on, very specific, solve the equation kind of thing. Does this person actually possess the knowledge necessary to solve the problem? Okay, there you go. It's not mind reading, it's a demonstration of ability. Great. Otherwise, for like managerial positions and things like that, you put a scenario in front of someone and say, what would you have done in this situation? You put their thinking to the test in a way. It's not mind reading, but it's about as close as you can get to trying to see how someone's mind works or how they problem solve and that kind of thing. Okay, if that's part of the interview process, that's completely legitimate and fine. Sure. But they're not talking about that here. They go straight from, it's not about quotas. It's about what people think, how they operate. It's irrelevant what they are or what they look like. It's, how they contribute to the company and the job with their minds and their experiences and their beliefs. But they don't talk about that here. Once you get down to the nitty-gritty, they're not talking about who someone is, but they're talking about what they are and how they fill out certain demographic imperatives in the company. So anyway, I got distracted. Distraction. I wonder if that's actually a word. Okay. Research by Harvard Business Review shows this isn't an issue that can be fixed by simply implementing quarterly training to reduce implicit bias on the job. Using standalone solutions as bandages to systemic problems translates to failure in the long run. The solution worth investing in? Recruiting for a stronger, more inclusive workplace. Enter HIVE diversity. Remember, they're writing this article. With representation across 300 universities and 2,500 plus student organizations, HIVE's community engages the next generation of talent, spanning everywhere from Alaska to New York City. Founder and CEO Byron Slozar started HIVE Diversity after a decade spent working in college career services. Quote, much of the career structure with regard to recruiting and career development doesn't include students as participants in the conversation, unquote, said Slozar. His experience led him to recognize some of the major inefficiencies and potential inequities that come with personalized career service. Quote, it expects students to accommodate how the structure has always existed because they need and want jobs, unquote. I still don't know what that means. Like, there's a company, they have a job opening. If they do a recruitment drive at a college or something, it's like, well, here are the jobs that are open and here are the skills that are required. And I'm not quite sure what that means. Because again, like I said before, if you're just replacing the career day at a college with an app that is effectively a 24/7 career day for college students, how is that structure any different? Say for the fact that you're doing it through an app rather than through a booth on campus. Isn't that still the same structure? Don't you still have to go to the same companies and go through the same process? I mean, the method of entry might be different. It might be more efficient, certainly. Okay. There might be more filters you can put through in an app during, sitting down and filling it out versus standing in a college campus at a career booth or something and just talking to somebody. Sure. I can see the efficiencies and the advantages of doing something more programmatically through an app. But again, at a certain point, the structure remains the same. You go through the hiring process, you go through the interview process, and so on. So if that's what he's talking about, I guess. But then again, how is that any different from Indeed or Monster.com or any other job search utility that's been out since the 90s? Thank you, Genoki Native. Would Token Staffing Service be a better name? They have yet to prove to me exactly how they do what they do. Aside from the name of the company and the stated service they provide, I have yet to be shown or had explained to me how they achieve that. Merging innovation and personalization with the power of technology, Slozar and his team have found another way. Launched in 2019, the SaaS platform offers an unrivaled career development experience for college students from diverse backgrounds and companies looking to, quote, pipeline their pipeline, unquote, as Chief Operating Officer Dakota Eddy puts it. Pipeline their pipeline. Okay. For a student, it's a no-brainer. The interactive tool builds them a perfectly formatted resume and profile to use when they apply to any of the jobs or internships available in companies that are committed to hiring diverse candidates. Right. Again, Hive Diversity, first and foremost, directs its users to their client companies. You know, they're not doing a big search on all companies out there, whatever. They're specifically a funneling tool to their client companies. Are their job openings with their clients? Their clients pay Hive Diversity a yearly fee or something to keep them on in order to direct possible hires to them. That's the service that they're selling. How they achieve that? Again, I don't know. Let's see. It also helps undergraduates grow and develop professional networks with digital diversity and inclusion training programs and peer-based communities at the heart of the Hive experience. Plus, question mark, it can all be done on their phone on their own time. So can a zillion other things these days. It's an app, like countless other apps. You're a job app for a select group of companies. They might be high-profile companies, great, but what do you do? For a corporate partner, i.e. their clients, it's a seamless way to build a foundation of junior-level talent, ensuring an organization is on track to creating a C-suite and workplace culture that looks and feels more diverse. Junior-level talent, C-suite and workplace culture. I mean, investing in the future, sure, you get somebody on the ground floor with the hope that they'll stay with the company and rise up in the ranks, okay. But it takes a little bit longer than that. I mean, just hiring a bunch of people. Anyway, what Hive does that's unique, okay, is recognizing how companies' needs for representation remain dynamic. What Hive does that's unique is recognizing how companies' needs for representation remains dynamic. Quote, on the corporate side, priorities and needs around representation will forever evolve. Workforce diversity will forever evolve, said Slosar. If representation and diversity is just diversity of thought, well, sure, because the world evolves. I think this is more just making a pitch that our services will forever be needed because we have a long way to go or something. The founder says Hive's focus is on building a community of career-committed undergraduates who are empowered by their ability to share more about their diverse backgrounds. 91% of students on Hive reportedly share how they self-identify directly on their resumes and profiles. 91% of students on Hive reportedly share how they self-identify directly on their resumes and profiles. What do you mean by self-identify? I mean, I can make some assumptions, but I try to do my best to remain open-minded until I'm told otherwise. For a company, this direct access to a range of representation and experience is a huge benefit. Quote, the biggest thing we're doing for a company is saying you can find what you need in one place, and we know that what you need is going to change by the minute, Slosar added. Okay, now I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I do own a couch. The biggest thing we're doing for a company is saying that you can find what you need. What? Okay. It's also a novel way to introduce students to careers and industries they otherwise wouldn't consider. Quote, fashion is an industry that has a lot of opportunities for first and second year students part-time in retail stores, says Slosar. If you're selling clothes in a retail store, are you really part of the fashion industry? I mean, yes, you are. Technically so, but is just selling clothes in retail stores being part of the fashion industry. I don't know. It seems a bit aggrandized to me. Quote, but not many are connecting that to how that funnel could lead to corporate work post-graduation. That approach might then introduce careers in fashion and retail, he said. Any retail job can conceivably do that if you're, I guess, dedicated enough to the product and or the company. But okay, again, what is so special about this app? Hive's partner Steve Madden echoes that sentiment. Liz Rodbell, the brand's group president of retail, believes a diverse set of candidates is only one part of the equation. Quote, we also need to be cognizant of our application process and ensure that talented people aren't being left out for reasons that have no bearing on their ability to fulfill job requirements, said Rodbell. I have a feeling that quote was also included in one of the previous articles I read. But yeah, reasons that have no bearing on their ability to fulfill job requirements. Well, again, I think I said it before, you have to make sure people aren't being left out. Don't you also have to ensure that people aren't being included in for reasons that have no bearing on their ability to fulfill job requirements? Hive Diversity works to help eliminate the inequities in the hiring process. The company's CEO says the explanation is twofold. First, they focus on cultivating genuine connections with their pool of talented students from diverse backgrounds. What do you mean, diverse backgrounds? What does that mean? What constitutes someone being from a quote-unquote diverse background? The second, equally important element is the partners they work with and their shared commitment to fostering a culture of inclusivity. Innovation in Hive's platform provides their partners with real-time guidance on equitable practices. Innovation in Hive's platform provides their partners. So Hive is advising the companies that pay them with guidance on equitable practices. Okay, what is an equitable practice? What is the advice that Hive is giving their corporate partners? I'd love to know. Thank you. This is Kyle. Since I sold movies once at a yard sale, that must mean I'm a member of the film industry, right? Yeah, I worked at a video store, so I was part of the film industry, right? I guess. It's these benefits that make Hive more than just another recruiting platform. You haven't told us the benefits at all. You've given us some very broad abstractions. You haven't told us what it does, how it does it. Rodbell agrees, quote, Hive is really taking a holistic approach to build authentic relationships with a diverse network of students by helping us remove barriers that might have previously prevented those candidates from rising throughout the job application process, she said. I'm 99% sure that quote was in a previous article I read. In a world dominated by staffing agencies that prioritize quantity over quality, only 4 Black CEOs are on this year's Fortune 500 list. The numbers speak for themselves. According to Accenture's Getting to Equal 2020 report, businesses with gender diverse executive teams report their sales are 2.2 times higher, while profits are 3.2 times higher than their non-diverse counterparts. In a world dominated by staffing agencies that prioritize quantity over quality, which often leads to inequitable hiring, communication issues, and indirect candidate access, Hive manages to stand out thanks to the universal solution it offers both companies and students. Quote, it's time to stop asking students where they go to school and who they know. Instead, let's focus on understanding who they are a bit better, unquote, says Slosar. Who they are. Who they are. Right. Okay. I think I've beaten that horse to death. But what was the other part of this? Well, it was this. Getting to Equal 2020 report. When we're talking about a world that doesn't have diversity manifest itself as a quota, when it's not about quantity but quality, getting to equal. Well, what does that mean? Well, I went to the link to their 2020 report, and here it is. Links to both of these things are in the description, by the way. The hidden value of culture makers, getting to equal 2020, Accenture. About the authors. Both of these individuals are employees of Accenture. Content, so on and so forth. Okay, now just as a just to speed things along a bit, nearly everything about this report is fluff, infographics, and things like that. Really, the meat of it is the methodology. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. Again, the link to it is in the description if you're curious for yourself. But I'm going to read a little bit of the opening salvo, let's say, when we get to methodology. Okay. Our research explored why there continues to be significant gaps in achieving outcomes in workplace equality despite growing awareness and commitments from organizational leaders. Okay, so why are there still statistical differences in demographics? Because we are talking about demographics here. We're not talking about thought processes or anything else. Why do there still remain disparities in demographic percentages, even though the rhetoric and the commitment from the leaders is to, quote unquote, reach equality? To find out, we built on our Getting to Equal research from 2018 and 2019 to create new data and analysis in 3 steps. Let me wet my whistle here a little bit before I get to continuing. So again, in their own company, they still find disparities. And from 2018 to 2019 and now to 2020, they still find these disparities despite claims otherwise. So why is that? Step 1, quantifying the perception gap. In our previous research, we identified 40 factors, such as flexibility and being encouraged to take parental leave, that work together to create a culture where everyone can advance and thrive. These factors form the basis of 2 new surveys designed to uncover how leaders and employees view and experience them. One survey was completed by 1,748 senior leaders, C-suite and management committee in organizations with 50 or more employees, while the other survey was completed by 30,382 employees, split equally between men and women. The surveys were fielded in 28 markets in October and November 2019 and were completed online. Okay, so online surveys of 30,000 and nearly 2,000. Okay. Pairs of questions across the 2 surveys enabled us to compare what executives say about workplace culture and what employees experience on the ground. Collectively, we called these differences the perception gap. Okay. Step 2, measuring the impact of the perception gap on employee outcomes. We used limited dependent variable regression analysis to assess the strength and statistical significance of these perception gaps in relation to employees' sense of inclusion in the organization, whether they have a strong ambition to become a senior leader in their organization, and their intent to leave/stay with the organization in the next 12 months. The model controls for a range of workplace and employee background characteristics such as organizational size, industry, age, gender, and education, which could also impact the outcomes. Measuring the impact of closing the perception gap. We built scenarios and used our models to simulate the impact that a 50% decrease in the perception gap would have on employees' sense of inclusion, ambition for leadership, and retention, split by gender. The perception gap. It sounds bizarre, doesn't it? To calculate the cost savings associated with an improved retention rate, we assumed a 50-50 gender split in employees and used data from the Center for American Progress to establish the cost of replacing an employee as being equivalent to around 20% of their salary. Under this scenario, increasing the retention rate of women by 5% would save a company employing 50,000 employees, of which half were women, up to $8 million per year. Is there a company that has a 50-50 gender split? What does the gender of an individual in a company in this analysis have to do with anything? If we're just talking numbers, if we're just talking bare bones savings, why is a female employee worth more or less than a male employee in your analysis? Impact on profit growth. To calculate the relationship between the perception gap and profit growth, we used an order econometric model. Okay, just as a preamble, I am not a statistician. I am not an economist. I'm sure all of this makes sense to someone who has that knowledge in their background. So if I get something wrong here, if this, what is to me gobbledygook, is misinterpreted by me, and there is a logic here, I am more than happy to be corrected in the comments. I'm just, as a layman, I'm just trying to munge my way through this. We used an ordered logic econometric model to estimate the probability of companies who responded to our survey falling within a self-reported band of profit growth ranging from less than 21% to greater than 21% over the past 3 years, conditional on global revenue, number of employees, industry, and average perception gap. The results indicated that companies with lower perception gaps are significantly more likely to demonstrate higher profit growth. We then conducted a simulation to estimate how profitability would change if all companies could decrease perception gaps by 50%. This suggested a 33% increase in average profit growth from 2.6% to 3.5%. I'm still not sure that I understand what the idea of a perception gap is. I guess I'd need to see the surveys. I wonder if they'll give them to us. Impact on profitability in 2019. Using our calculation for profit growth, we simulated the rise in profits using actual data on EBITDA of all private and public companies globally from S&P Capital IQ for 2019. This points to a boost of $3.7 trillion to global EBITDA in 2019 of US $11 trillion. $3.7 trillion would be made or saved just by closing this perception gap? Wowzers. Thank you, X Bubba Hotep. This sounds like if I make a bunch of assumptions and my assumptions are right, then X. I would really love it if at the end of this they put up the actual surveys. Given how many pages are left in this, I'm assuming not. I guess I had thought they would include that here. Maybe they will. There's a couple of pages left. But anyway, the 40 factors that influence advancement and characterize a culture of equality. Bold leadership. Gender diversity is a priority for management. Gender diversity. Okay, so we're filtering by gender. Management needs to focus on gender in their decisions for hiring and promotion. Okay. A diversity target or goal is shared outside the organization. A diversity target or goal. So a quota system. Okay. The organization clearly states gender pay gap goals and ambitions. Progress on gender diversity is measured and shared with employees. Gender diversity is measured. Leaders are held accountable for improving gender diversity. A diversity target or goal is shared inside the organization. The leadership team is diverse. I've asked this countless times in the past, and I will continue to ask the question. If your stated goal is to achieve diversity, and you define diversity by things that are irrelevant when assessing merit of an individual, and instead focus on aesthetics, effectively, gender, race, ethnicity, orientation. How are you not being discriminatory in your hiring and promotion practices on the basis of elements that have nothing to do with merit? When the publicly stated intention of a company is to achieve an outcome of numbers based on gender, in this case, how are they not practicing gender discrimination in their hiring and promotion practices? I've asked it before. I will continue to ask it. Comprehensive action. Progress has been made in attracting, retaining, and progressing women. The company has a women's network open only to women. The company has a women's network that is open to both women and men. Men are encouraged to take parental leave. Employees trust that the organization pays women and men equally for the same work. Well, I'll tell you what, if they're not, there's some laws they'll have to run up against. But is it the same work? Possibly. Are both individuals exactly equal? Not necessarily. If you've been there longer, if you work more hours, on and on and on. The proportion of women in senior leadership has increased over the last 5 years. Proportion, gender, senior leadership, the number of gender hiring, promotion, whatever. How does this not require gender discrimination in promotion? I don't know. The organization is fully committed to hiring, progressing, and retaining women. Progress has been made in improving gender equality in senior leadership. Gender equality, 50-50 split by gender. There is a clear maternity policy in place. Women are encouraged to take maternity leave. There is a clear parental policy in place. The organization hires people from a variety of backgrounds. Leaders take action to get more women into senior roles. An empowering environment. Employees have never been asked to change their appearance to conform to company culture. That's an empowering environment? Not having a dress code? Okay. Employees have the freedom to be creative and innovative. All right. Virtual/remote working is widely available and is common practice. Well, certainly, and not at the time that this report was created, probably. Now that is almost a requirement with the pandemic, so sure. The organization provides training to keep its employees' skills relevant. Okay. Employees can avoid overseas or long-distance travel via virtual meetings. Sure. Employees can work from home on a day when they have a personal commitment. Conceivably, it depends on the job. I don't know. Employees are comfortable reporting sexual discrimination/harassment incidents to the company. Sexual discrimination, you say? Yes, management boss person, I'd like to report a sexual discrimination incident in the company. Your hiring initiatives. Employees feel trusted and are given responsibility. That depends on the circumstances, I guess. Employees have the freedom to be themselves at work. What does that mean? Leadership has a positive attitude toward failure. Okay. I mean, it depends on the circumstances. What do you mean by failure? Leaders set a positive example around work-life balance. Sure. Networking events with company leaders take place during office hours. Okay, if they're trying to increase the division between your real life and your work life and not ask people to take more of their real life and make it part of their work life, that part I don't have a problem with at all. I've talked about that many times in the past. Having a clear delineation between this is work and this is my personal life is very important. And it also increases professional distance, which is also very important. Employees can decline a request to work late without negative consequences. It depends on the circumstances. I don't know. Employees can decline a request to attend early morning, late evening meetings without negative consequences. This is all very abstract. Sexual discrimination / harassment is not tolerated. Really? Because this report certainly seems to be encouraging it. The company has made progress in reducing tolerance of sex discrimination or gender-biased language. Gender-biased language. Okay. Company training times and formats are flexible. All right. Supervisors respond favorably to flexible working requests. Depends on the circumstances. The organization respects employees' needs to balance work and other commitments. Sure. Yeah. The organization has made progress on building a workplace where no one feels excluded. Except for the prior stated goal of discriminating on the basis of gender. I mean, how many different instances up here do you have in your 40 factors that explicitly and only mention women? Acknowledgements, references. Okay, so there was no, references, broadsheet. Do we have a copy of this survey? I can't tell. I would love to see the actual survey they put out there. Empowering environment, comprehensive action. Yeah, this is all the fluff stuff going up. Our research, yeah. Okay, well, at the risk of sounding, conclusionary, is that a word? I don't know. That's all I really had. I hadn't read through the entire report, but just wanted to look at the quote unquote methodology. And the methodology from Accenture, as it has in the past, is plainly stated and without a whole lot of interpretation to be needed. And it is gender discrimination in hiring and promotion practices. That is the only way any of those claims or stated goals work. That's the only way it works. You have to implement systemic sexual discrimination to achieve those goals, to achieve those outcomes. If there is some other method by which they are achieving that, I'm dying to know. But just as a layman, setting aside all of their aggregate processes and statistical this, that, or the other, when you get down to the bare bones, if your stated goal is to advance specific people on the basis of gender, promote specific people on the basis of gender, hire people on the basis of gender, give deference to people on the basis of gender, achieve a number of whatever on the basis of gender, you're discriminating on the basis of gender. I don't know how much more plain it can be made. But yeah. So I could overstate it. I think I probably already have. I'll take a couple minutes if any of you have any questions or comments you'd like to add to the broadcast, and then I will wrap up this latest installment in my ever-going quest. Ever-going quest? Never-ending quest? Boy, am I still waking up? Oh, Pepper Jack. Okay, no, I'm not actually drinking a Pepper Jack, just for reference. It is a little early. It's just Dr. Pepper, plain old, God, okay, my words are failing me. Unenhanced Dr. Pepper. Data Wasteland, Scribelight, Scribbles, this report reads like an IKEA furniture assembly manual. Data, are you using proper letter case? Did I miss something? Maybe I am awake too early. Okay. Let's see. This is Kyle. Remember, gender discrimination is only bad when it's against women. I guess. Original Stroom, it's never too early if you're not working. I don't necessarily. To each their own. Shadow Sonata, no, IKEA manuals are clearer than that. Well, this is just as another aside. This is the weird balancing act athletics that you see all the time when it comes to corporations trying to describe their diversity and inclusion programs. As with that article that I read, at the top, they very plainly state diversity is not about quotas. It's about thought and experience and belief. Okay, how do you quantify belief? How do you quantify thought? How do you quantify experience? If diversity is those things, and your goal is to increase diversity in your workforce, well, how do you know when you've gotten there? How do you quantify the intangible like that? You must have some way of doing that. But of course, once you start getting down in the nitty-gritty, you see they're not talking about the intangibles. They're not talking about merit. They're talking about the things they can actually measure. The objective things. How many women? How many people from this demographic? How many people from that demographic? None of which are determinative factors in someone's ability to do a job necessarily. There are instances, like if you have someone who is physically disabled in some way, certainly they're probably not going to be up for a job that involves a lot of heavy lifting or a lot of physicality. That's just reality. That's just pragmatism. Sure. And so in that instance, you're going to be discriminatory. But then every job is discriminatory because most jobs have job requirements or knowledge or experience requirements. There is a level of discrimination in hiring already built in, sure. But it has to be based on ability. It has to be based on actual experience, provable job experience, provable skill possession, not the things that are intangible, not the things that don't matter. But here we are. You have this report that is trying to say it's all about, culture and all of these sort of but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, they can't avoid the reality of what they're saying. And the reality of what they're saying is, I got to tell you, and I've said it countless times in the past, it sure does look to me like they are practicing discrimination that goes against civil rights laws. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not making a bald-faced accusation per se, but I can't see any other way around it just looking at the materials I've seen. Okay. And the fact that it is so proudly broadcast into the ether, this is what we do, this is how we look at things, this is how we assess our employees. I'm just amazed that this is commonplace. This is common practice. And there doesn't seem to be any kind of legal pushback. Is this or is this not a declaration that they have the illegal, civil rights violating, gender discrimination practices built into their company philosophy? If it's not, I would love for somebody to explain to me how this does not indicate that there's something fishy going on. Again, as a disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. This is just layman stuff. I'm just looking at it and reading what they've put out there publicly. And it looks awfully suspicious to me. Data Wasteland scribbles, just in case you missed it. Okay, thank you, Data. Mike R., how many self-contradictions in this article did you count, Scribe? You'd have to go back. I'm thinking at least as far as all the contradictions come from that first paragraph where they say diversity is not a quota. It's about thoughts, experiences, beliefs. Anything that falls outside of that, if it's not about numbers, why are you saying it's about numbers? If it's not about gender, race, etc., why are you bringing up gender? That's it. So there's the inherent contradictions in that first article, 4 or 5, maybe more. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it. Data Wasteland scribbles, have you read the Times Magazine article about how a group saved the 2020 election, and what are your thoughts? Well, if you look back at my most recent broadcast or hosting of the Lords of the Night, I read the entire article. I spent nearly all the 2 hours of the show reading just that one article, and you can hear my reactions and Monkey's reactions and Satsu's reactions to it. Anybody else, who's interested in that article, that Times article? Yeah, I read the entire thing. Spent the whole show just on that one article. The title of that stream for you in the future who might be listening to this on the Lords of the Night playlist is Lords of the Night, a penultimate farewell, because it was the next to last broadcast of Monkey being on the show. And I put monkey on the thumbnail as being Richard Nixon departing in the Air Force chopper or whatever it's called, Air Force 2 or something. Let's see, anything else? Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, that is all I had. A little bit of a rabbit hole because one article took me to the link to this other thing. Yeah. And still, despite all of this, the eternal question remains until I find an answer. How exactly does Hive Diversity deliver diversity to their clients? What is the mechanism? How do they define diversity? What is diversity in Hive Diversity? I don't know. Still don't know. But I'll be keeping an eye out. And on the off chance that you come across something about Hive Diversity that we haven't already covered here or is new, do let me know on Twitter. My Twitter handle is below. Also, if you happen to be interested in any Scribe merchandise, which I almost never advertise on here because I always forget to, there's a link in the description below. Aside from that, if you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find both of us tomorrow night, Monday night, on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you learned something, and if you didn't, I hope you at least found it entertaining. I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.